Ciao a tutti ragazzi e bentornati a Mig Babol. Parte la seconda stagione, siamo tornati, c'è stata un po' di attesa ma finalmente ci siamo. Abbiamo dovuto fare un po' di lavoretti perché come vedete ci troviamo in un nuovo studio, siamo in VRS Studios e io sono Andrea Migno e questo è Mig Babol, seconda stagione, il podcast che parla di MotoGP e personaggi affini a questo mondo. Partiamo subito veramente secondo me al top. MotoGP Legend, pilota straniero. Le presentazioni non contano perché vedremo adesso con il numero 34 direttamente from Texas, KEVIN SCHWANTZ. You feel the applause?
I can feel it.
Yeah. Ciao Kevin.
Ciao, ciao.
All okay?
All is good.
My first question always in this podcast is how are you? How you feel? Because it's maybe the most important question. So everything okay?
You know, it's all really good. I had shoulder replaced on my birthday almost 1 year ago now, and it feels so much better. It doesn't hurt all the time. My sleep isn't affected, and otherwise not too bad. I have a bit of a sore ankle from a adventure bike mishap, but otherwise all is good.
But it was from an injury that you had when you're racing?
Yeah, when I crashed at Donington in qualifying in '94, I dislocated it. And the doctor said if it went back in on its own, which it did, he said that's when all the damage was done. So I lived with it from '94, and it was, if I fell off the dirt bike and landed wrong, it'd pop out, and you just kind of put it back in. You kind of got to deal with it. But, yeah, it feels a whole lot better now.
Great. Happy. I'm very happy to have you. For us, it's a huge honor and a big pleasure. In Italy, maybe this episode will be very appreciated from Italian racing appassionati because you have a big fan base in Italy. You have to know that, or I don't know if you already know, but in Italy, many racing people call their child with your name, Kevin, just because of you.
Yeah, maybe they just ran out of names, but it's quite an honor to know and to be introduced to young kids. I was named Kevin after you. My father loved you, and he named me after you. So, yeah, there's no doubt. It's and I think Italy's one of those places. It was almost my second home. If I didn't live in Texas, I'd probably be right here in Emilia-Romagna.
Yeah, because also I wanted to speak about that. You have a great relationship with Italy, no? And especially with Romagna. And how it's born this relationship with Italy, and how, why, and when?
It all started when I first, one of the first years I did a few Grand Prix in 1986. The last race we did that year was Misano. And we stayed in Pesaro, and we had a great time. And I just really fell in love with the region that very first time that I came here, even though I didn't get to stay very long. But then when I met Aldo Drudy and met all the guys at Club Nautico there on the beach, and used to come here and hang out in between races, it was, if I didn't have 2 weekends off, if I did, I'd go back to Texas. If I didn't have more than 2 weeks off, I'd come here and stay if we didn't have testing or media or something else to do.
So it's since a long time you've been in Italy, no? You stay here, and also this born with the meet with Aldo Drudy, or before or later, because I know also a great relationship with Aldo. How it born this kind of relationship?
Aldo and I met in Livigno one season. I think it was the end of the season, maybe in '89, and we all got invited to go ski and snowmobile. Valentino and Graziano were both there, and Valentino was just 10, maybe 12 years old, but running around a lot like he does still today. But yeah, and Aldo was the person that I first got in the car with, and I thought he was just the driver, and so he goes, "Why'd you get in the back seat?" I said, "Oh, I thought you were our driver." He says, "No," he goes, "I'm a friend of Reggiani," and anyway, so since then we've gotten to just be closer and closer friends. I was really close with his mom before she passed away, and it's just, this is a region that very relaxed, very laid back, but yet if you want to go find motorcycles, you want to go ride, you want to go bicycles, there's so much to do here, and the people are, for the most part, really nice. I like them.
I'm really appreciate and also Aldo speak about you always very well. He tell me a lot of story of you guys and when you stay in Livigno or something else. But when you start to racing, where and how? Because you start in another era. For me is everything new. So how, when, and where you start in US? How was your beginning of racing?
Well, I started. My parents owned a motorcycle dealership when I was born. So I grew up. Both parents worked there. So every day after school, when I started going to school, every day I went back to the shop. I got to ride my mini bike or my motorcycle, depending on how old I was. As long as I hadn't gotten in trouble at school, as long as I didn't have too much homework to do. So I always got to ride my motorcycle at the end of the day. And I just remember as a kid at school, rah, 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 you know, teachers, you need to do this. People always reprimanding you, telling you need to do stuff differently, you need to study more. When I put my helmet on and rode my motorcycle, everything was quiet. It was so nice. It was so peaceful. And I've always had that same feeling. I mean, when I rode a Grand Prix, as soon as I start to buckle my helmet up, big smile under my helmet.
Was your world?
Ready? It was my world. I was ready to go to battle. So, I started road racing kind of late, 1984. So I was almost 20 years old when I first started.
Yeah, it was quite late.
Production racing. And in 84, I got a tryout at the end of the season with Suzuki to ride their American Superbike. I did well at the tryout, so I got the ride for 85. And then the success that I had in 85, I got an American Suzuki contract 86, 87 to race Superbikes. When the first race at Daytona was happening in 86, they were already starting to talk about going to the match races. And, of course, Steve McLaughlin was the organizer for the American team. He asked, "Do you want to go?" I said, "Yeah, I'll go. I've got to ride a Suzuki. The factory wasn't going to let us take the bikes from U.S. So I said, just find me a good bike and I'll ride." I had no other requirements, didn't need to know what the bike was, whose bike it was, nothing. I just wanted to go to Europe and race.
And then you go in Europe?
Yeah, and then I came to England and did the match races. And when I did the match races, while I was there, I met Barry Sheen. Barry was impressed enough with my riding. He said, "I want you to stay after the races, match races. If you have some spare time, let's go test a 500. I want you to ride So from 1984, starting club racing to almost the start of 86, so in less than 2 years, and I was going to go test a 500 Grand Prix bike. Mind you, it was one of Barry's bike from 1984, but it was still a pretty competitive 500. So did a test. He said, "Oh, you did great at the test. I want you to come back and do this race. I'll pay your expenses for you to come back." So I did, came back. I did really well at the race of the year. After I did good there, he said to Suzuki in the UK, which was Heron Suzuki at the time, he said, "We need to get Kevin a bike. We need to get him to Assen, to the races that don't conflict with his American schedule," which were Assen, which is Holland, Belgium, and Misano. And I went to those three races. I didn't do great at any of them. I think Spa I finished 9th or 10th. Assen I crashed. The bike didn't make the finish. I rode the TTF1 race there on Thursday, I think, and battled with Joey Dunlop for a little bit. And
in the TT circuit?
Yeah. Well, not on the Isle of Man, but still in Holland.
Okay.
At the Dutch TT.
Yeah.
And I beat the other Suzuki, the 4-stroke on the standard 500, and they were mad because it was world championship points that I took away from them. Anyway, I didn't make any friends there really, but I had fun. I went to Spa after that, crashed on the sighting lap. They had to fix the bike, got the bike fixed. Anyway, finished the race just barely. And then Misano, those were all push starts. So it was really difficult for me. In every race, I was the last person to the first turn.
Was different from now, but it's amazing. And then at the time, how was the preparation? I was when you start to racing, you were training with something like motocross or flat track. Or you do some preparation, or just jumping on the bike on the weekend?
Well, I was in 1981, 82, 83. I was trying to become a professional motocross racer. I tried to ride the Houston Supercross, where I did race the Houston Supercross 82 and 83. I went from the heat race. I didn't finish high enough to transfer to the main, so you went from there to the semi, and then they had last chance qualifier, and then I got to load up and go home. I never made a main event racing motocross. And then in 83, I had a crash on the first lap. I'd gotten a good start in my heat race, and I thought, oh, this is it. I've figured it out. Anyway, I had a big crash, endoed, and I decided that, you know what, 82, I had graduated from high school. I was working at my parents' dealership. My parents were, you can race all you want on the weekends, but you can't take off all week and go ride and train and do all the things that, as a motocross racer, you really needed to do. So I tried road racing at the end of 1983 for one race. I did an endurance race, and I thought, I'm almost as fast as my friends that have been racing for a while. So that's when I started road racing full time in 84.
But and then you had a big injury when with motocross, and then you passed to racing to road racing, no?
Yeah, just a big crash. Not really any injuries or any
just a big crash.
But just it was kind of an awakening that, unless I could train 4 or 5 days a week, go to the gym, run, ride, do everything you needed to do, my fitness level was never going to be that to be able to beat the fast guys at that time in motocross. And I probably wasn't that good of a rider either.
Yeah. But then you come into Transatlantic Trophy.
Yeah, that's what I was calling the match races.
Okay.
Yeah, the Transatlantic Trophy was a
But you already battled there with the Rainy, maybe, or not?
Not in 86. He didn't come in 86.
Okay, but
because the Americans, none of the manufacturers in America, or none of the Japanese manufacturers who had teams in America, would allow our bikes to go to England to be raced. They were like, you guys can go ride if you want. Fred Merkel went, I went, Dan Chivington, Ruben McMurder, a bunch of guys from the U.S. all came over, but they all found bikes, or they brought their own bikes because they weren't factory bikes. They weren't, manufacturers' motorcycles. So, the match races was a huge thing for me because, like I said, that's when I met Barry. And Barry just kind of took me under his wing, and next thing you knew, I was racing a 500.
And then you had a lot of rivals in your career. Ucho told me many races about you, was a big fan already at that time. And who was your greatest rival when you race?
Yeah, there's no doubt it was Wayne Rainey. Yeah, he and I didn't race against each other in 86 because he was still racing. He was racing a Honda for a private team, 250s and 500s in the 250 class in the I think it was Formula One at that time. There was F1, there was Superbikes, there was 250 Grand Prix, there was Battle of the Twins. So Wayne was riding 250s and 500s, but he wasn't racing the Superbikes until 1987, and then he rode for the factory Honda team.
So then, when he came, you had a great battle. But I have one curiosity about that. You always, when during the race, also I saw one interview of Cadalora. Also, you fight also with him, and you always used to look to the other riders when you ride. That is not easy. Maybe you didn't ever. Lose the concentration, and why you take a look every time to the other riders when you pass them, you look behind, or even in the braking zone, you watch the other riders and then you brake.
Yeah,
what happened there?
I was always curious to know, in certain sections of the track, because of course you get your pit board, so you know what your time is when you cross the finish line, but you don't know each section of the race. And certain corners, I feel like I'm really good through this section. Wonder if I gained any time. So, I probably looked back over my shoulder more than I should have. But there were some times that I just specifically stare at the rider, especially Wayne. down the front straightaway at Suzuka. Stared at him all the way down the front straightaway one time, and he just drives him crazy. He's like, "What were you looking at?" I was like, "Just checking on you, seeing." I was always one to try and I wasn't going to be the fastest that day, so I needed to resort to something else to figure out how to beat you. And if I could stare at you during the race, you must think that I'm doing this pretty easy because you're staring at me. You're not concentrating on what you're doing, even though it may have taken everything I possibly could do to take the time to look at them. But I felt like it was always something that was maybe a little bit of strategy in the race as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. But also, how was the relationship in the paddock between you and other riders? Because you were many US star in the road racing, but also other riders. And how was the relationship in the paddock between the riders?
Until Sunday after the race, we might walk by and want to fight. But after the race, you'd probably see us either sitting at one of the two or the three or four of us' motorhomes, having a beer, talking about the race, laughing about it. We couldn't always, but a lot of times we could find a way to laugh about what had happened. Yeah, you won this weekend, but I'm going to kick your ass next weekend. Just get ready, And once again, it was another one of those things. Walk by and Wayne would be sitting outside all beat up and mad because I had beaten him. I'd be like, "Hey, come over, let's have a beer." He's like, "Well, I'm not going to drink a beer with you." Well, come on, it's okay. I'm not going to poison you. So once again, it was another one of the opportunities that I took to break the ice between us. Come on, we race on the weekend, and when we flip our shield down, we don't like each other. But when we take our helmets off, let's go.
Can be friends.
Let's have fun.
And very nice. And when something happened on the track, like something dangerous, big or scary, or fighting too much, how you solve that moment with the riders? You had already like a steward panel. Now you have a steward panel, and we go there. You speak there, or you meet between the track and maybe fight sometimes, or just hard speaking.
Yeah, it's funny because I never really had much of any kind of altercation with anybody. One time with Kaczynski at Checo, and I rode to the garage, got off my bike, and just went in the garage because I was so mad I was going to fight him. And then Lawson and I came together in Assen, and we both fell. Of course, I went to the hospital with a dislocated hip and a broken arm. So when he gets back to the paddock, he then takes the opportunity to say, "Yeah, he's lucky he's hurt, because if he wasn't, I was going to hurt him when he got back here." He never said that to me, because if he would have, there would have been a fight.
And also, it's very funny because now you cannot make angry voice. They early
can't even raise your hand at the marshal now.
yeah. You saw with Quartararo also, and maybe at the time was different. When in the paddock, I met some old style mechanics or rider. Every time they told me, when we race or some years ago, when something we have something to solve. We not lose a lot of time. We meet between the tracks and we speak, or sometimes we fight. So I can imagine the time.
Get the point out. If you don't agree on it, then discuss it. And if it turns into a fight, the guys would stop you from fighting typically. But you get the anger out. The other person knows what they did really made you mad. So yeah, and motorcycle racing in itself is dangerous enough. You don't want to have somebody out there that's trying to get back at you for something that you did to them or they did to you.
But also, it's like no right rule, maybe. But at that time, there isn't or not that there was a lot of respect on track.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We didn't normally, with the exception of the one guy that you really kind of had to watch out for was Gardner. You always stood a really good chance if you were racing him that you would end up with some Honda paint on your bike.
Okay.
Rainey and I, for the most part, we would lean on each other a little bit, but we never took the opportunity to take each other out of a race. Lawson and I had the one altercation. Doohan, of course, took me and Barros both out in an incident at Donington, but Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're mad about a pass. What had upset me so much about what Kaczynski had done was I was on a cool down lap and I'd gotten out of his way. So when he came off the corner, he moved over and just drove me into the grass. And I was like, dude,
Why?
I got out of your way. I did everything I was supposed to do. So yeah, I was going to have a discussion. I didn't really like him anyway.
But,
Ciao ragazzi, ricordatevi di mettere mi piace al video, seguirci su YouTube e tutti gli altri canali social, attivate la campanella e se potete abbonatevi anche. Ciao!
you had almost a short career, maybe. A lot of high percentage of result, because I read that almost 104 races, and you make it 51 podiums, so one every 2 races, maybe.
And 25 wins, so
25
one
wins.
every 4 races.
Yeah. So this maybe is a high percentage, but my question is, you think that your injury, because you had also many injuries during your career, you were knowing about your riding style, you was like a cowboy, but you had also many crash, and you think that your injury can affect your career time? You maybe you can ride more with less injury, or more or less was the time of career you want to have it?
You know, it was in those days. By the time you got to 30 years old, you were trying to find something else to do. Whether you were going to stay involved in racing, whether you're going to go home and retire, whether you're going to work with a team, whatever it might have been, you were thinking about maybe one last contract with a team, race for one more season, help develop a bike, but not to be that guy to win. Because by the time you got to where you were 30, if you started at 20 or 21 or 22, 6 or 7 or 8 seasons racing a 500, I mean, everybody was crashing. There was, whether it was, the bike seizing, whether it was, just the power delivery of the 500 sneaking up on you and high-siding you and hurting you. The injuries, I think, were a lot more frequent back then. Today, safety equipment's gotten so much better. Track safety's gotten so much better. The bikes, I don't think the bikes are easier to ride. I think they're more forgiving. I think the electronics that they have, but when something goes wrong, it goes wrong just as big. So, I was, I was thinking I had maybe another season or two. I should have retired at the end of 94. I tried to get my wrist fixed so that I could race in 95. I rode 3 races, none of them very competitive, and then retired after the Japanese Grand Prix in 1995.
You retired, but I want to stay on that theme, because also you ever been in fear about racing in that condition? Also, you race in Macau, that maybe is the worst safety condition ever. But you ever rider, guys? You ever feel the fear of riding at that time?
I think I noticed fear a little bit in 1995. The 3 races, one was Australia, one was Malaysia, one was Japan. Where I noticed it the most was at Japan in the rain. And typically, if you said rain,
Was Suzuka?
it was at Suzuka. And yeah, typically you say rain in Japan, and I was going to be one of the guys at the front. The last thing that I remember from that race, besides finishing 6th, was Loris Capirossi passed me.
Okay.
And when he passed me, it kind of stuffed me up the inside. And when he went by, he went to like raise his hand to wave to say he was sorry, and then he crashed. If not, I'd have finished 7th. So, but I just remember looking and seeing guardrails so close to the edge of the track. It genuinely was scary. I had never noticed that before in my career. And Suzuka used to be one of my favorite places to race. I always felt like, I had really good results there.
Yeah, it was maybe an incredible track. Which is your favorite track when you raced?
I always felt like Japan was a really important race. If I could go there and do well or possibly even win, I was pretty sure I was going to have a job next year.
Okay.
So job security, and always Japan was pretty early in the season. So it was nice to get one under your belt there if you could. Besides Japan and the importance of the Japanese Grand Prix, Donington Park was by far my favorite racetrack.
Nice. I never ride in Donington, but everybody say that Donington was very very nice.
From the first turn all the way down, almost to the back straightaway, everything kind of ties it's on the perfect lap. Everything ties itself together. One mistake, you're completely out of rhythm. The lap's finished. So it's not stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. It's got great flow, big uphills, big downhills.
Was nice.
A lot of fun.
I can imagine.
And big braking at the end, which is always good for us.
Yeah, you were listening to the other riders like Cadalora say that your strongest point was the braking zone. So maybe how you can manage that at the time, the braking, why you were strong on that moment?
You know, I think the bike, the design of the bike was an advantage. It had a really low center of gravity, which meant you could really stop it well, meant you could turn it, change direction really quick. But if there was corners where you had to turn and come back on yourself, about halfway around the corner, typically the Suzuki would want to start going straight. I mean, it would quit turning as good as it did in the first half of the turn. So at that point, either you had to finish turning it with the throttle, or you just had to close the gas and roll around the center of the corner a little bit slower, which typically wasn't an option that I like to try. So yeah, and as my career progressed and we got more and more advanced at Suzuki, and we made some changes to the bike in 92 and 93, which helped it in that area. I mean, a whole bunch, but yet didn't take away from the braking effectiveness.
But also you stay always with Suzuki, no? But you ever had some contract from other manufacturers, Honda or other constructor ever try to have you in their team?
I tried to go ride for Agostini at Yamaha at the end of 1989, and it just didn't work out. It ended up a phone call from Japan to my dad saying that they felt like, you know, that Yamaha was honored that I wanted to ride for them, but that they felt like Grand Prix racing was in a really good place. I had a really nice home at Suzuki, and Honda was happy with. They had had a young guy and had Wayne Gardner as well, and Yamaha had people in place there. So anyway, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. I actually signed a letter of intent to ride for Agostini if he could promise me and get a letter from Japan saying that we would have the same equipment as Team Roberts, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to race the same motorcycle as Wayne Rainey, because I felt like I wanted to beat him on the same exact bike. Whether my bike was better, his bike was better, didn't matter. We're starting with the same thing. And that was my full intention of going there, was to try and accomplish that. So I'm kind of glad it didn't work out. I think staying at Suzuki my entire career, was beneficial. I think the fans appreciate it. I think Suzuki really appreciates it. And, I had confidence in those guys my entire career that I knew they could build a championship-winning bike. We just needed to have the right amount of testing, the right amount of preseason, no injuries, no crashes as the season progressed, nothing silly, nothing mechanical. And 1993 was shaping up to be that season.
I was that year. I know that you were fighting a lot with Wayne, but how was your feeling there when you won the championship? How was your feeling? Maybe was your dream, no?
You know, it always was my dream, but to win with Wayne being hurt, wasn't the way I wanted to win the championship. There's no doubt I'd rather finish second. But things happen. Racing's dangerous. There's nothing we can do about it. Everybody's like, "What do you like so much about Mazzano?" I was like, "Well, knowing that injury and that incident happened here doesn't take anything away from what I like about the layout of the racetrack." I still love the racetrack. I still loved it when it went the other direction. I thought it was so much more fun building speed, going through those lefts, going to the back straightaway. But I understand the safety issues, and I think it's a better, safer place for everybody to race now.
Yeah, but so you don't you fully enjoy that World Championship winning, or for that reason you have something that hurt you because of Wayne injury?
I of course I sat there and thought about it for a long time, but Wayne actually called me and said, "Hey," he says, "you're the one that pushed me to that level. You're the one that pushed me to try and win. He goes, I was leading the world championship. I was leading that race. I was pulling away from you and Catalora just a little bit, but I made a mistake. So hearing it from him made me be able to appreciate and enjoy it much more.
Yeah. And also you, after you retired, but not at all, because you race also with the NASCAR.
I did,
and
race
you also won 2 races, maybe, no?
in Australia. Yeah.
And how was that in compare with the bikes? But anyway, how was that kind of championship?
You know, to drive a car is something that's big and heavy, and you have so much safety around you. It's easy to just kind of take it for granted and not realize that you can still get hurt, because I did have a really big crash in one in America and was 2 days in the hospital. And I don't think I even knew what my name was, but yeah, I mean, it's fun when you have 4 big tires and a big heavy car. Yeah, you got to finesse the thing around still a little bit. You know, and now I have a big race truck for racing off-road.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's from one extreme to the other. And yeah, it's just something to I don't want to race full time and be 100% focused on what's going to make me better. How can I win? I want to do it because it's fun. I enjoy it. Go to nice places, meet nice people, do fun things.
It's something to enjoy when you retire from a high level career like in 500. Maybe the car is better later, no? When you are more relaxed, you go with the car, even if always hard, but car maybe is a bit easier like that.
I don't know that it's easier, but it's definitely a whole lot less painful when you do. You can just spin out and then keep going. You don't crash and have to get up and dust your.
And also, but another time after your retirement, another moment when you came back to racing was in Suzuka when in 8 hours.
I came back in 2013 and 2014.
Yeah, at 49, maybe.
49 the first year. I was 50 the second year.
Okay.
The first year I rode with Kageyama and we finished 3rd.
Yeah.
I only did just less than 1 hour on the bike, and that was all I could possibly do that year. The next year we had Yosh bike. We had different tires. We were one of those teams that should be at the front. We qualified, I forget, in the top 10 somewhere. And my teammate crashed the bike in the first hour in the wet, so I never got to get on the bike.
Okay.
So I took that opportunity to, again, retire from racing.
Okay. But how was that feeling to be back on the bike at 49 and to be back racing with other riders? What was the feeling to be back there?
Yeah, I mean, at 50, to be able to physically be able to get back on a bike and do it, it took a lot of preparation away from the track. In Texas and in America, I was doing endurance racing, riding GSXR 600s and 750s, trying to get ready to go back in racing. You know, the speed thing, the closing speed, being able to pass people, being able to figure out what's happening, where they're going next. You have to build that back up. You can't go away for 15 or 20 years and then come back and expect to still have it. So I worked pretty hard to try and get back fit and ready to race, and wasn't quite there in 2013, but in 14, of course, it's easy to say now because I didn't have to get on the bike in the race. But I was excited about the race in 14.
Yeah, always nice. But you have also maybe to train your brain, your eyes with the speed, maybe it was not so easy to be back.
Here's a pretty good story. In 2013, I raced 600s. I could do 2 hours, big tank of fuel, Texas heat, middle of the summer, as hot as it can get. Really, really consistent lap times. One of the fastest guys in the region on 600s. Felt like, man, I'm ready to go. Watch my heart rate. I'd wear a heart rate monitor, and 140, 135, something like that, riding a 600. My first laps on the bike at Suzuka with Kageyama, up the back straightaway, building some speed, come back up, go through, get 295K at the top of the back straightaway, back 2 gears, through that fast left. I come in, I feel like, wow, I'm tired. What am I saying? But I looked, and my heart rate was higher than it was when I would ride the motocross bike training to get ready. Over 170, just the back straightaway through the fast kink. But that speed, I think, is what's so intimidating, and it just creates uncertainty in your heart races because of it. So, I mean, I that's the next year, Suzuki tested at Coda with the MotoGP bike with the Pugne, and I got Yosh guys to bring me a GSXR 1000. So I got to spend 3 days on 1000 right before going, well, it was April. So just a couple months before the Suzuka 8-hour. But then when I went to Suzuka and wearing my same heart rate monitor, my heart rate was so much more calm at the top of the back straightaway because I'd been on a bike going almost 200 miles an hour. So the speed is one of those things that, I mean, you visually have to turn your awareness from, 40 or 50 miles an hour in a car to way out in front of you at 200.
But also maybe the feeling of the race is put the pressure higher, so maybe also that can increase the heart rate, and also, but you honestly you miss something about racing time, especially riding a 500. You miss that feeling of sliding wheelie and get the flow during a track.
The excitement that there was when we rode 500s, raced them, especially on days when you got them to where they were pretty close to right, being setup wise, gearing, everything, sliding them, wheeling them. They were so much fun to ride. But that didn't happen very often. I always said, you know what, I raced 104 Grand Prix, but I can count on one hand the number of times I rode a bike that I feel like was almost perfect and have 2 fingers left. So 2 or 3 times the bike that you start the race and the first couple laps, you just, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Sometimes you even notice it Sunday morning warm-up, or at least sometimes I would. I'd come in and I'd say, guys, don't touch this thing. Put fuel in it. Put new tires like
fix
we're
everything.
just fix it. Don't do anything to this motorcycle. I love it. So, but there were also Sunday mornings after the warm up that you come in. It's not doing this. It's not doing this. And it's horrible. And then you have to try and ride around all the problems that the bikes have. Pushing the front early when the fuel tank's full. The bikes were really affected by the fuel load when they were 115 kilos.
Yeah, it was very light. But why this happens? Why, for a technical reason, or everybody has this kind of issue? Every riders, every teams, or was a technical, issue, technical reason? Or something else.
I think part of the trick with a 500 trying to get it completely set up was you had to get the gearbox right. You could change every gear ratio there was, first gear all the way to sixth. You could change them up and down in 2-kilometer increments. So you have a big option there. Suspension geometry, but at the same time, you had Michelin tires, and Michelin might bring you 5 different fronts and 5 different rears to try over the weekend.
So you got only one weekend every time?
And you have to, and they would pick, your tire technician would say, I think these 2 are probably your best bet. This one's going to be a little softer, maybe faster, but I don't think it's going to be consistent enough, not going to have enough life. So you had some help in trying to narrow it down, but you needed to just do lap after lap after lap. And without telemetry, I mean, we monitored throttle position and we monitored suspension.
Okay.
So, it was really difficult as a rider to remember everything that was going on, everything that was good, everything that was bad, what you wanted to change, what you liked, and what you wanted to keep. It was really difficult in the time frame that you had, 2 sessions on Friday, 2 sessions on Saturday, 20 minutes on Sunday morning, to get the bike right. If you had a bike that was basically good, like we had in 93, you go to the track, they'd make a few changes to it before they unloaded it from the truck, and then you were testing tires the whole time.
Okay.
Then the weekend goes much smoother. But when you get somewhere and the bike doesn't do what you want it to, now you got to be working on it, adjusting on it, but you don't, when you're making changes to the bike, you don't want to be changing and trying tires because more grip or less grip can affect whether you like the setup or not.
Which are your idea about the biggest difference on a race weekend of today compare to your race weekend about kind of practice and also the paddock living. Also, you come always many times and in today's races also, so you can make a compare with the time.
I think one of the big differences is everybody's there to do a job. Dorna has a whole lot more control over all the riders now than maybe they did when I raced. So what we had to deal with was sponsors. So Lucky Strike was the sponsor of mine for most of my career. I had Pepsi in the beginning. But the Lucky Strike people might say, hey, on Friday night or Saturday night, we're going to have a dinner. We want you to come to dinner. It's like, I'm racing tomorrow. I have to be up early tomorrow morning, and I have a race in the afternoon. Yeah, but it won't be late. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, you're still at this dinner going, what's going on? What the riders today have that we didn't have, that's probably as much a time-consuming thing as it is. It's more time-consuming because we didn't have it, is social media. Everybody's on their, post, and if you get too involved in your phone or the social media, I can only imagine, somebody says something and you got it down, and then something else that you're thinking about. You need to be 100% focused on what you're doing. And if there's social media needs to be done, you need to have somebody that's taking care of that for you, I think, as a rider. Because, back in the day, like I said, trying to get everything right on a 500 was really difficult. With all the gauges and telemetry and everything that they have now, it must be, the rider's input is so important down to every little fine thing to get that bike as close to perfect as possible. So the rider doesn't need to be distracted with anything else. Not social media, not girlfriends, not wives, not whatever. Needs to be 100% focused on what he's doing and what his job is.
Yeah, now maybe some guys, some riders has this kind of mentality, some other kind of mentalities, but maybe it's better, as you said, to stay fully focused on
let the results on the track speak for you.
Yeah. This is the main things maybe, and also, would you like to try today's MotoGP?
I was just at the track and I was watching those guys come by and how fast they went by. I rode 2 weeks ago for EICMA. They had ride days, and I rode a Suzuki GSX-8, which they have a new Cup series in the Italian Championship. But it's a twin-cylinder 800. It's not very fast. And I got to ride with Bayless and Petrucci and Stefan Everett, and they were all on big, fast Ducatis or Yamahas or whatever. And I just remember how fast that production Ducati went by me between turn 6 and 7. Oh, my. It made me want to jump out of my skin. That really made me think, I'm so glad I don't do this professionally anymore. I'm glad it's down to the young kids. But then watching Quattraro and Renz, and even Biaggi's out there doing some testing, watching those guys roll off into that first turn and watching how fast those bikes come by in front of you. I don't really miss it. I think the excitement of racing is something I still get watching it, being at a race, talking to the guys about it. But yeah, it's not, it might be fun to ride, the modern Yamaha around the track for 10 or 15 laps, but I bet you it's not easy.
Yeah. Hey, it's nice to see, but
exactly.
When you are on jump on it, not so easy. You are an idol for a lot of appassionate of road racing. And why, by your point of view? For your riding style, for your person, for both of these kind of things, and because you of that era, maybe you are the most liked the rider, maybe.
I think the fans really can tell how passionate you are about something, and as angry as I was when things didn't go well, to how much I enjoyed winning and how my celebrations were maybe a little bit over the top compared to what everybody was doing back then. I think the fans really do know the riders, even though it may be from a distance and they may not know you personally. But, I feel like I always feel like I gave the fans what they came to see. And then maybe sometimes even a little bit more. We were watching Zarco leading the French Grand Prix and at 13, 14 seconds out in front. He's still adding time, putting time on Marc Marquez. And we know how difficult that must be. But I forget who I was sitting beside, and I said, it was Aldo's brother, Sandro. And I told him, I said, you know what? I crashed out of the Belgian Grand Prix on the last lap with a 14. My board said plus 14.
You want to kill yourself?
Yeah, you fall. Not only do I want to kill myself, when I get back to the garage, the whole team wants to kill me. And that's something that I think my team must have been really, really good about, was hiding their emotions. Because you do something so stupid and come back in the garage and they're, hey, glad you're okay. Not, we want to kill you. We could have won the championship. You would have had many more points. They were really good about that. But it's another thing that I've always told young kids who are maybe getting into racing is, make sure that if you make a mistake, you know why it happened. You know what caused it. Learn from that. As long as you learn from it and go back, and then the very next weekend, do your best to be at the very front, because your team will really quickly forget about last weekend if you can go win the next race.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that all the time, but I feel like and it doesn't mean that I put out more effort after I was a dumbass and made big mistakes like that. But I feel like I put out 110% all the time. But maybe a tamed 110% was something that was a little better than just a full-on 110%.
Yeah, people maybe feel that you're 100%, more than 100%. And also, about the today's MotoGP, who are your most liked riders? And also, what do you like and what less to see when you come to races? And what you think about the today's World Championship?
I think what we're seeing so far this season is that, like we saw when Marc Marquez was on the Honda before he got hurt, he can make racing really boring for us. There's nothing anybody can do about it except the other riders try and up their game to be able to try and find out where Marquez is better than them. If I have a favorite rider, it's Morbidelli. I just feel like he's nice, he's quiet, he's relaxed. I enjoy talking to him. I don't spend enough time with any of them to really have a favorite. I don't hang out with anybody a lot. But, I think everybody in the field has an equally difficult job. The guys at Honda and the guys at Yamaha and the guys at KTM have a little bit more difficult of a job right now. Aprilia's probably not got a real easy job. Anybody that's riding a Ducati, it's a lot less work. It's a lot less stressful because, as long as you get there, you get to the track and you get on with your work, that you should have a bike that's capable of at least being on the podium and might be able to race for the front, because everything out there as far as the Ducatis go seem to be able to win.
And how is now your life as a retired rider, but now you stay in the US, and how is your living now? What you do, how you spend your time? You go riding or driving? What do you do now?
Well, I've got my truck that I'm going to try and race 3 or 4 times this year. I've raced it once already, and the first time I raced it, it ended up on its side one day, and then it ended up going from its wheels over on its top back to its wheels the second day. We didn't never get any good results, but I had fun. I didn't hurt anybody, didn't tear up too much equipment, and I look forward to getting back in it. That was my first race ever in the truck, so getting back in it and rethinking some of my approaches to different corners and different types of stuff. I think I can be a better driver for sure. Besides that, enjoy between the coast and the mountains, Idaho and Texas. Fishing, cycling, motorcycles, dirt bikes, everything.
But you ever did a flat track?
Yeah, when I was a younger kid, before my motocross days, I raced some amateur flat track. My uncle raced flat track professionally, so he had really good bikes, and sometimes he'd let me ride them and play on them once I was, a teenager, 16, 17, something like that.
But you like it, or was it a bit boring?
No, I really enjoyed it. I raced in the Astrodome. They had some amateur races on Sunday after they had professional races on Friday and Saturday. And I won a couple of classes every year that the national championships came to the Astrodome. So I felt like I was as good as any of the younger kids out there at the time. And yeah, it was just something I'd do whenever the event came around, which was beginning of the year.
Yeah, but because also was a kind of a school for US riders at that time, no? Maybe also Kenny comes from flat track. Many riders use that discipline to train for road racing, or not?
Yeah, no. One of the things that that Kenny sells more than anything is the fact that you got to be comfortable with the bike sliding around underneath you. And it just makes sense. I mean, yeah, we're riding on pavement, and yeah, most of the time the bike's in line, but as the race progresses and tires get greasy, you'll be able to spin the bike, control the spin, and you'll learn that at a much lower risk and at a lower speed riding flat track, doing it whether you do it on small bikes or whether you do it on a bigger motorcycle like a 450 like Valentino uses out at the ranch. Yeah. As long as the bike's sideways, you can learn to feel what the weight on the outside peg does, how much it helps grip, what's happening with steering. So it really helps enhance your bike control skills.
And the sliding feel also is always very nice. It's like wheelie and drifting, always a great feeling.
Graziano loves to be sideways, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really appreciate that feeling. Well, I will interview also Graziano, maybe with Aldo. I wanna speak also with him. And speaking about that, how is your relationship with Graziano and also with Vale? That you know him when he was already a little guy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're good friends of mine for sure. Valentino, when he came to Austin and drove the BMW last year, I went to the track and saw him for a couple days. We went to dinner on Thursday night before the event started. So, I got a lot of time for Valentino. I think what he's done for the sport is unbelievable. And, I wish him big success in his career. And hopefully he gets to get in one of those hypercars pretty soon and show us what he can do against the best guys out there.
Yeah. He also started maybe with your helmet. When he started with mini bike, he started with your helmet.
I think one of the first years at Misano, I think in '89, Aldo said, "Hey, we're going to go watch a mini moto race. There's this kid, Valentino Rossi, that's racing. Yeah, I think you'll be really impressed." So it was a 2-man race, and there was a team, and I don't remember who Valentino's teammate was, but just sitting at the little go-kart track watching, you could tell Valentino's teammate was way faster than almost everybody else on the track. And then when Valentino got on the bike, it was that next step again, how much faster he was than everybody else. And he had not this replica, but he had the old original white one with red and blue. And I was like, well, yeah, he's got the right helmet on. That's why he's fast.
You start well with the right helmet. And maybe we are almost finished our question. We did almost 1 hour, but last question is about some episode, something happened on that time. If you have some story, some nice story to tell us with or other riders or some, I don't know, it's difficult now to think about, but please tell us something that nobody knows about that time or your racing time. I don't know if you have something to tell us about that.
There's always
you have
those,
to leave it.
Those Saturday nights or those Saturday night after Assen, because it was a Saturday race, or Sunday nights after most other Grand Prix. It was always the Monday morning, getting up and walking outside and kind of seeing what had anybody broken anything, crashed anything, cars, bikes, whatever. One night we were setting off fireworks in Assen, and Mick's mom was staying in his motorhome. Mick had gone to a dinner. And I was setting off fireworks. She came out and yelled at me, "No, stop setting off fireworks. We're trying to sleep." So I went to set one more off. And when I did, I threw it like that. And I was like, "Oh, where'd it go?" And it went over the top of my motorhome and landed on Wayne Rainey's awning. And it blew a big hole in the awning. So he gets back from dinner and looks up, goes, I had to go over and say, I did that.
My fault.
Next time I went back to America, I got a new canopy for him and brought it back. And I think my dad installed it for him. So, just little silly stuff. We used to always have a good time on Sunday nights after the races, that's for sure.
Are you happy about your career, your time? If you would like to change something of your career, and also if is it true that you really enjoyed that time, no?
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I'd change a thing. You know, I think mistakes I made, crashing out of the spa, 14-second lead, it's something that I learned from. It's something, whether it got me more fans or less fans, or people like me more or less, it doesn't really matter to me. But it's something, my entire career, I gave everything I could. And in my retirement, when I retired in Mugello, that's what I said. I said, if I had anything left, I'd be giving it right now. But I don't. I mean, everything was out there and there was nothing else left. And absolutely, every last lap of every race, whether it ended in a crash or whether it ended up in a win or ended up, you know, somewhere off the podium, it's stuff that I genuinely loved.
Maybe this is the best way to, you know, maybe this means that you really enjoy everything, and maybe it's the right way to have a huge career as you had.
You know, for me, going to the races was something that was made more enjoyable by winning. And, you know, we managed to win enough that I kept it fun and entertaining. And when it quit being fun and started being scary, and I felt like there was danger out there, that's when I stopped.
Very cool. Kevin, maybe we finished. Ragazzi, parlo now, speak Italian to say hello to the guys. Ragazzi, non so cosa dire, un grande piacere, un grande onore avere oggi KEVIN SCHWANTZ qui a Mig Babol, quindi non mi rimane che ringraziarti e say thank you and say hello. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao a tutti ragazzi, questo è Mig Babol, a presto. Ciao a tutti, ciao. Adesso di applausi. Abbiamo fatto, secondo me.